Hello, good afternoon. My name's Amina Evans. I'm the Head of Foundation Stage at Heartland International School, and I'm also the BSME Network Lead for Early Years. And today's our second webinar for this academic year, and our focus is looking at resourcing enabling environments. And I'm thrilled today, we've got some wonderful guest speakers sharing their practice with us. So thank you to everyone for joining with us today. I just wanted to draw your attention before we start the webinar to the Early Years platform. So we have some threads on here. So we've got some information about curriculum discussion, assessment and examinations, resources, and if any questions that you want to ask. I've been in contact with one of our colleagues at Victory Heights, Hannah, and Hannah's going to be leading our moderation sessions. So looking at writing. So we're going to be sharing resources with regards to how to do moderations and working together over the next term. So that's a really exciting addition to our Early Years Network suite as well. So today, to start us off, we've got Vivette Eaton, and I've known Vivette, I want to say how many years now, Vivette. So Vivette supported me in one of my previous employments as a cash assessor, and I've used her systems laser learning to support my cash level 3 learners. And Vivette's been involved in childcare and education for 30+ years, which I don't believe when you see Vivette. I'm sure that's a lie. And Vivette is Director of Laser Learning. And today she's going to be talking to us about how to prepare, provide, respect and reflect the environment. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I'm going to give Vivette the host powers. Okay, Vivette, over to you.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Amina. Yeah, it has been a while, and I can assure you it is over 30 years, with my oldest grandchild now being 15. It has been a long time. So I hope what I'm going to say to you today, it may not be anything new, but what it might do is just remind you of what's really important and where to focus, and just how much you have in control when you're looking after the children in your care. So I'm going to share my screen with you to start this presentation. I hope I'm going to get this right. Let me just see. Now, hopefully you can all see my screen now. Okay, lovely. So we're starting with resourcing the enabling environment. Okay, so what a task that is for us. My first answer would be, question would be, how much money is there available to do this? How big's the space I've got? And where are the toy brochures? This is going to be like Christmas. But no, that's not what it's like at all. It's all about the children. Who are they? Who are the children we're going to be looking after? Who are they as a group? Or more importantly, do we know anything about them as a unique individual? The EYFS, its overarching principle is that every child is a unique child who is constantly learning, who can be resilient, capable, confident, and self-assured. Now, do you know, the worrying thing about that statement is that's down to us, that they can be resilient. It's not that they can be, we want them to be, we have to train them to be. So we need to know what to do in that situation. We'll probably know their age when they join us. We'll probably know the ratio of boys to girls, whether they're coming to us for the first time or moving to us from another class or setting. We'll know our space, indoor and out, and our staff team, or at least how many there will be. And we need to get to know our staff as well. The best resource you can have to enable learning is to enable children and to enable staff is your team. And the EYFS states, children learn and develop well in enabling environments in which their experiences respond to their individual needs, and there is a strong partnership between practitioners and parents or carers. Practitioners need to be highly qualified, well-trained, motivated, caring, and ready with praise. Not just praise for succeeding, but praise for trying. It's not the success that's important and motivates and keeps a child going. It's the trying and learning and being praised for that. We want lifelong learners in our staff. We want cheerful, inquisitive solution providers. What are enabling environments? Well, we have 3 aspects to focus on. The emotional environment. This is the one that promotes well-being, stability, understanding, support, and empathy. We want the outdoor environment and the indoor environment. So we are looking to enable these little people in 3 very specific ways and areas. How do we find out about the children as unique individuals, and what do we have to make available to them? Well, we have to take time. We have to listen. We have to observe, be available, be at their level, share and communicate in conversations. We need to share our time, our love, our excitement at being with them, our awe and wonder at the amazing learning opportunities available to us every day just by using our senses. We need to know, they need to know that we are loving and we're interested in them, and we need to know what it is that creates a spark in them. What is it that's going to make them focus and engage? We need wonder and wow moments. Look at these 3 pictures here. Can children have those faces and that excitement and those experiences in your environment without you even doing anything? We want to see that on the children's faces. We want to see that on the staff faces when the children achieve something. We want to see the wonder and wow. These little people I just showed you are unique. In many ways, just like every other child in their peer group, they have feelings and they want to be cuddled, they want to be free to move, they want to play, they want to learn and understand the world around them. They also get frustrated. They eat, sleep, drink, and cry. However, who they are and how they learn and what interests them and how they are brought up by parents, the type of birth they had, their health, appearance, abilities, as a package, that's what makes that child unique and not just like any other child of their age. So where do we start? So I start with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Before a child is enabled to learn, they need to feel, as at the bottom of the triangle, that they have all their physiological needs met. They need food and water and warmth and rest. And something we often forget in nurseries is to allow enough quiet time, enough rest for the child just to take a break. Being around lots of other people all day is extremely tiring. We've got to make sure their safety needs are met. Do they feel safe to actually make mistakes, to come to you whenever they need to play, to run around, to explore? Do they feel like they belong and that they're loved when they're with you? And do they have their accomplishments met? Are they able to achieve in your environment? Well, of course, you have some basics for your environment. Mostly, more importantly, you have your high quality staff, the well-trained people who are getting regular CPD, reflecting on their practice, regular peer and senior group discussions, and so on. You have your books, your blogs, your creative resources, your quiet areas, etc. And then it's about you learning. Just be with the children, be a human being and not so much a human doing. The EYFS framework, practitioners must respond to each child's emerging needs and interests, guiding their development through warm, positive interaction. We need to get down to their level. Yes, squat down, sit on the floor, on a chair with them, see what they can see from their perspective, and then listen, watch, understand, and share. Get to know that unique child in your care, just like you would any adult or any other person that you'd like to get to know better and spend time with. Is your environment child friendly? Well, obviously it is. It's a nursery, it's a childcare centre, it's a baby or toddler room. Of course it's child friendly, you might say. But are you sure it's really child friendly? A place a child really wants to be and really loves to come to. How many rules do you have? How many things can children do independently? And are they allowed to do them independently? How many times are they given instructions on what they should do, when they should do it, how they should do it, where they should go, where they should come? How are the things stored? Can they reach them? Can they take what they need and develop their day? Are your activities and plans child-led, adult-led, convenience-led, or even tidiness-led? Children need to explore, investigate, touch, see, move, focus, imagine and be challenged, be praised, be able to fail and start again. They have to learn all skills. They need to have time to complete what they're working on and do things when they come to their mind and they have the idea, which is stimulated often by seeing something or by hearing something in their room. For these reasons, it's the quality staff that are our key resource and why I'm focusing on the staff. A practitioner that is attentive and acts on suggestions from children, not from the curriculum, not from the parents, not from other members of staff and other pressures of what other nurseries might be doing, but what are your children asking to do? What do they want to learn? What do they want to play with? They will provide resources and physical resources. That person will, that member of staff will provide the resources and physical resources, and they will facilitate and extend play possibilities. Praise and support so as to enable the child and not disable. You might say disable is a bit of a strong word to use, them to bits, and we're trying to enable them. But there is such a thing as the saying in Latin, which is non progredi est regredi, and that translated is to not go forward is actually to go backward. So unless we're taking where the children are and we're progressing their learning and we're facilitating for their learning, we could actually be holding them back. So other children are moving on at a faster rate than them or more in line with what we would expect. And in that case, we are then disabling the child. So we need to think about enabling. You may have the best resources and toys the world has to offer, but if you provide resources, for example, that are not age and stage appropriate, you could actually then, as I say, be disabling the child in their learning and development. You could be creating frustration, disinterest, and in turn, unwanted behaviour. And that won't be down to the child. It's not a naughty child as such. That's just a bored or frustrated child, one who's not being given the opportunity to use their own initiatives. Enable with praise and encouragement to carry on and not just focus for success, as I mentioned earlier. That's part of the emotional environment. No one is born with skills to do anything, really. We're born with a desire to learn skills. Children need to be supported to try and try and try again to learn those skills. It's vitally important as they grow up to be adults that go on into the workplace. If they want to succeed, they have to know how to fail and keep trying. They have to have that perseverance. So as enabling practitioners, we should be consistently encouraging children to persevere and find solutions and praise them for those things. Completing and succeeding are obviously great too, but the child is rewarded by their own success, hopefully, when they achieve, which is the self-actualization at the top of Maslow's triangle. Our role is to make sure those around us have the desire to always persevere and be able to succeed for themselves. So staff must be like that too. We've got to be good role models. The outside is an environment. If you can be outside with young children, then do so. Don't let the weather stop you. You can find solutions to the problems of the weather, to sunscreen, shade, go out early in the morning, go out in the cold and put warm clothes on if you need to. It just takes a bit more planning. And with COVID, particularly at the moment, being outside is the best place for everyone to be, we're told. So that's a great place to be. We want children to learn and understand about the world around them. In fact, we strive now to build a sustainable future. We as humans have destroyed so much of the planet, but now we're trying to pull back, and we're having to pull back very hard and very quickly to redress the balance. So it's easy to get children to make this progression by getting children interested in the natural environment and what's out there and getting them to know and love it and to enjoy it. Outside, they have space, they have freedom. They're enabled by the environment. They learn so much just by looking around them and seeing things in the changing light. The sunlight changes throughout the day. The clouds come and make it a little bit darker. They see shadows. They feel the wet rain on their skin. They might feel the breeze or the warmth. They're all things that are adding to what they do. They can touch things that are natural and not man-made. A tree feels warm and a flower is so silky and smooth, or possibly even spiky and glossy, delicate or tough. A flower is called a flower, whether it's exotic, like a stunning orchid, or whether it's just like a chunky hydrangea. We still call it a flower, but why? We need to give children the experiences of what all flowers look like, so they know what we're talking about. We're not talking about a rose when we talk about a flower, or a buttercup. We're talking about a whole load of things. So give them that. When they show an interest, show them more, give them some extra, let them try and make one themselves. There are places outside where you can learn, for example, to estimate, experience height or width. We can learn to climb, you can learn to jump, you can learn to build your strength in your body, take risks, obviously assessed risks, not just any risk. They learn to balance and build core strength. The ground outside is rarely completely flat and smooth like indoor rooms. So learning to walk and balance on grass, slopes, climbing over wood and small rocks, walking on pebbles or sand in bare feet, or in shoes or in Wellington boots, all experiences, and they all require practice at the start to find out how to do those and to build up our experience. Please look at a few pictures with me. And then we're going to think about what resources were required for these, and you'll find out it's actually very cheap, very simple, and very easy to do. But how could we extend the learning in each situation? How could you change it up? How can we create this inside and outside? And can you make it inclusive for a child of determination? For example, a child who's unable to walk or a child who's unable to see, would they be able to take part in these activities? Look at this, very simply, we've got this little chap here, and he's just in a pair of shorts and a t-shirt in the first picture, stamping in water. How exciting. How can we make that more exciting? He's already getting cold, wet feet on a very hot day, and he's loving it. But we can then watch him as he watches the water trickle down. We could add a hose to that. We could add a watering can to that. We could let him go on all fours in it, roll in it. The next picture, very, very similar, but he's now dressed for completely different weather. So what is he learning? I can do the same things, I just have to be dressed differently. And he's only a tiny tot there, but he's learning those things very naturally without having to be told, you need to put this on when it's cold and you need to take that off when it's hot. The third picture, we've got him in autumn, playing with the conker. How wonderful to have a go at picking up a conker on an autumn day with the wind blowing and your hair all over the place. It's still warm enough to be out in a jumper. And when he picks up that leaf, it was absolutely fine. But when he tried to pick up the conker, oh my goodness, it spikes my hands. I have to hold it differently. He's using a pincer grasp now. He's not using his whole hand because he would actually stab himself with all those little conker spikes. That's great learning for him. And now we have him at the top of the hill with mud. That's a risk. What if he runs down there too fast? He's going to fall over. What if it's uneven? What if there's stones in there? Does anyone have to move anything? The middle picture, looking at a magnolia tree, the new flower budding. And what's really interesting him here, because I took this photo of him, is the bottom of that flower is sticky. And it's really interesting because the top is so smooth and silky and soft and almost velvety, but at the bottom it's a little bit sticky. So he's getting that experience. He then went on to look at buttercups and some irises and things like that. And that really just extended his learning about what a flower or a bud really is. In the next picture is building a den. And he's getting involved with grabbing all the logs, looking at whether there's any bugs on them and putting them in the right place as to where they need to go. That log he's got in his hand there, he decided was going to be the bench that he was going to sit on inside his little house he's creating. And then we've got all the positional language and the maths and things like that that we can use when they're outside or inside. In the first picture, he's looking above something. He can go under there, he can go over it, he can put things on it. And in the next picture, he's going in, he's coming out. And the third picture is learning what movement is like. When I sit on there, if I rattle around, I can move this thing that I'm on. It's suspended on little chains and I can move it backwards and forwards. So he's learning to balance and learning what movement feels like in different places. But when we're trying to talk with children, the best thing is to give them that reality all the time. So if I wanted to teach him about birds, for example, I know these are actually technically guinea fowl. I don't know whether that comes onto birds or ducks or whatever, but it's a guinea fowl. As intelligent, resourceful people, we know that I'm looking at ducks here or birds here, but we can do this with anything really. We want to show them what it's really like. I could read him a book about a duck and he'd probably think, oh, that's a duck, and recognize another duck. However, letting him experience what a duck actually does is going to be slightly more helpful for his learning. So, for example, here. You see, he was actually walking behind that duck then, so he could walk like the duck, he could hear the ducks, he could see how they moved, he could see that they ran away from him and not stayed to him. He learned more from that little few moments there than he would have done by me showing him a duck in a book and telling him that ducks are little and they waddle along quickly. So that's what I mean about giving them experiences of the real thing and enabling that. We could then perhaps go on to show him rabbits somewhere or whatever else it is that we want to show. If that's his interest, let's just keep growing on that. Oops, sorry, I was can't move on. There we go, 1 second. Okay, we also need to nurture relationships as part of this emotional environment. That's not easy to resource, of course. The other activities we've been seeing just involve just letting a child go for it and be there for them to make sure we're offering support and guidance. But relationships, language and communication and empathy, that's your time and effort, and lots of it. We need to think about what we're trying to achieve in early years. Communication language is one of the 3 prime areas of the EYFS, and it states communication and language development involve giving children opportunities to experience a rich language environment, to develop their confidence and skills in expressing themselves, and to speak and listen in a range of situations. So we know we must achieve a rich language environment, but how do we do that? So once again, we make time for listening and talking in many different ways, communicating with touch and gesture, sound. All this starts at birth and must be made time for every single day in as many ways as possible. Listening can include all these headings here: voices, music, singing, stories, birdsong, laughter, but they require focus. And to ensure that, we might need to gain eye contact, stillness from the child, touch, holding them so that they're looking at us or looking at what we want them to look at, gesture and facial expression, pointing, open hands, raised hands in explanation, and waving, smiling or frowning. Peace and quiet too. Provide your children with peace and quiet in your enabling environment so that they can listen. We need to make sure that there's not always something on in the background. The safe place also is important. If they're very shy or struggling to develop in a big group, we need to give them time to be able to find somewhere quiet to go, somewhere where they can be on their own with someone, look at a book quietly, have a quiet conversation with a member of staff. I once had a nursery where they had some shelves, quite wide shelves, and they were on the floor, and they had 2 sets together. And the little child that was really, really shy one time took all the things off the bottom shelf, got a blanket and climbed in with a book. And how lovely, just lying in this bottom shelf, looking at her book. And the shelf next to her was another child came and joined her. And in the end, they had a conversation. They weren't stopped from doing that. It wasn't the right place to be, but it wasn't the wrong place either. It was just a perfect place for them to talk. And I can show you just here, this isn't the child, by the way, but it is an example of that, of a child climbing into a bottom shelf and just being comfortable. And the other one, finding a cozy tent to be in to spend some time with their practitioner. If we look at these, we're looking for communication that is meaningful, close, focused communication, and the opportunity to make a connection. And we can see here in the first picture a father and son having a very close connection, communicating together, both great eye contact and facial expressions. And then a deaf child in the middle communicating with his teacher. She's holding his hand to make sure that he knows that she's talking to him. And then the practitioner at the end with 2 little girls looking at flowers. They're close, they're talking, they're on their own, making that meaningful connection. We need to lead by example. When with children, we must be examples of what they could become and create opportunities to demonstrate good qualities and praise those. We should be role models. Teach children to be loving, kind, and be loving and kind yourself. Not only teach the children things, but ask them to teach you too. That enables them when they're giving you feedback about their day. And then we'll see them copying what we role model, such as in these pictures here, learning themselves how to communicate with other people and to share good practice and ideas. The indoor environment, you need to be prepared to change your plans because of a conversation or something you overhear. Imagine a toddler coming into your nursery who's got a new puppy. This happened to me. I had a child turn up with their puppy. Mummy had it in her arms and it couldn't walk yet because it hadn't had its vaccinations. Well, that pretty much could have said just ruined my day in terms of the plans I'd made for the children in my care. And why? Because the children had different ideas. They were no longer interested in what we were doing. They just wanted to talk about puppies all day. So we decided to make that into that day's project and develop it through the week. And the way that happened was over about 8 weeks. It went from being a new puppy and looking after making a puppy's home to being a jungle and a safari. It started with, what do puppies eat? And then we said, wow, it eats this kind of food. So then we made a puppy home and we brought in some puppy food, etc. And then we developed that idea and made a role play area, which then developed into, can sheep live in your house with like a puppy? And we were, no, can't sheep live in a house? They live on a farm. So the gradually morphed into a farm instead of being a home with a puppy in it and a vet surgery with looking after animals. And then someone, after reading The Tiger Who Came to Tea, decided that they wanted to have a tiger on their farm. So then we talked about how you wouldn't have a tiger on the farm, and we gradually changed the play area into a jungle. And if you look at this little clip of this video, I'll make it really quick, probably won't play all of it to you, just show you how you can then create resources to make a jungle. And this is from one of our learning experiences. It will start, I hope. There we go. I'm very aware I don't want to take up the time that my colleagues are going to be using, so I want to just cut that short. But you can see that by making an environment like that, hanging up curtains and making flowers and animals and sticking them on the walls, having the right sounds, having little boxes you put your hand in to feel what does the ground feel like in a jungle, all of those are enabling experience. And if you wanted to see more of that, it's on one of our enabling environment short courses. So providing appropriate resources in the main is enabling children, is about listening to them and observing, and then responding to their questions and their ideas, allowing them to make suggestions whenever they can, getting them to think about what they could do, what can they bring to the day and to the play, and how you can then add more resources to help and support them in what they're doing. So we don't need anything expensive, we don't need anything dramatic. We just need to be there. And in the same way that your child might pick up a banana and use it as a telephone, if they pick up a box and use it for something that you wouldn't use it for, ask them about it. Ask them if there's a better thing they could use. Is there anything else that we could find that might be exactly what you need? And just use your skills from having been a child and being around children, and look around you and think about what you could use and when you could use it. So if you want to be a lifelong learner, which really and truly, that's what you have to be to enable children, you have to still be on that same wavelength, still learning, still being excited, still being enthusiastic. So you could then go on and maybe do some short courses. Amina has very kindly allowed me to mention that we sell short courses through the Laser Learning, and we have over 100 short courses that you might want to do just to get that little bit of enthusiasm or a little bit of knowledge. Now, because you've attended this conference today or this webinar today, we're going to give you a complimentary short course. If you just write to me, my details will be on the next slide. Just make a note of those and Amina will give it to you. So until the 7th of December, if you send me an email, I'll send you a voucher code for whichever course you would like to do. And then hopefully you'll get an interest in that and it will inspire some new ideas. And this is just my details. Now, I hope I haven't bored you. I hope that I've given you some insight into how exciting it can be just by listening to children and just following their ideas and their example, and then supporting and encouraging them to develop, because every day can be a great day for you if you really enjoy just listening to what they're doing and supporting them in their play. Thank you very much. Let me non-share. Oops. Sorry, Amina, I can't hear you. I can't hear you, Amina.
Okay, I'm back again. I've just reclaimed the host. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I know you felt like that sounded like forever, but it was just a minute just to figure out how to reclaim the host back. But thank you so much, Yvette, for that. That was wonderful. And you know, it's lovely to see. It's lovely to see the outdoor environment. It's making me really miss England and thinking what life is like there. So thank you so much for that. I'm just going to go through now, see if there's any questions or any comments before we move on. We've just got one from David, who said, thank you for the webinar, the CPD. And yes, all of the recordings we will share, and they'll be on the BSME portal for you. And we also share the recordings with non-BSME schools as well. So if you've got any colleagues who aren't in a BSME school, we're really fortunate that BSME are allowing early years professionals across the world access to these recordings, which is really great. And I'm really grateful for that. Yeah, so one of the questions that is from Hannah is how we're using resources during COVID times, finding it difficult to do creative activities with children in reception classes. What's it like for you, Vivette, in the UK? I know we were talking about this the other day, that actually it's slightly different to the Middle East, isn't it?
Yes, it is slightly different. I mean, we are very, very careful at the moment. We've got children coming into the nursery and staff, and everyone has to use bacterial gel when they come in and wash their hands. We're cleaning all surfaces regularly around the children, so you're cleaning paintbrush handles, etc. But basically, we're not wearing masks in the actual classroom with the children generally. Colleges are, but not the little children, because we still need that close contact because it's so important for their well-being. So basically, just lots of antiseptic wipes, lots of hand gel, and lots of cleaning. Even in the office here, there's only 2 of us in the office at any one time. We're cleaning the office, all the handles, all the doors, 3 times a day, and we're responsible for our own desks. We don't screen share at all, even if we want to show something. It's just being hyper vigilant about it, and where possible, be outside.
Thank you for that. I'm just going to check no more messages, but thank you so much for that. It's really lovely to see you again and be part of your learning once more.
Thank you. Take care.
I'm now going to be passing over to King's Al Barsha, to Samantha Hamlet and Rebecca Tennant. So Samantha is our lead practitioner at Al Barsha School, Dubai, and Rebecca Tennant is deputy head teacher. And I'm really excited about this presentation because, you know, it really leads on to what Vivette was talking about, the environment and bringing that awe and wonder back to the children to really make that learning real and meaningful for the children. So I'm going to pass over now my host baton to Rebecca, and hopefully my co-host baton, there we are, to Sam. Let's see if that works. So Rebecca, you might need to make Samantha the co-host if you can.
Yes, I think she's there. I think I've managed to unmute her. Oh, she's back on mute now. Sam, are you able to unmute yourself?
Okay, that says you're not allowing me.
Oh, well, we can hear you, so that's fine.
That's it, it's worked then.
There we go.
Okay. Good to go.
Yes, great. We'll make a start. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome. Thank you for giving up some time on a Thursday afternoon to listen to myself and Sam and Vivette, and we're hoping to make the next kind of 25-30 minutes as purposeful as we can for you. So I know that we were given an introduction there, but just to give you a little bit of an insight into who we are, so that hopefully you know that you are spending part of your Thursday afternoon listening to people who hopefully know what they're talking about, although you might feel differently at the end of it. So my name is Rebecca Tennant. I am the Deputy Head Teacher at King's School Al Barsha, which is in Dubai. If you aren't familiar with this, we are a British curriculum school with students from age 3 up to 18. And we are incredibly proud of the journey that we've been on over the past 6 years, which Sam and I have been on. We are the fastest growing school in Dubai to go from good to outstanding across 3 inspections. And the early years department, which we'll speak to you lots about today, has been rated outstanding since the very first inspection, and it has been referred to as a model of best practice, which we're very proud of. So again, hopefully we're going to share some of those good practices with you today. So I'll let Sam introduce herself.
Hi, so I'm Sam, and as Rebecca said, we've worked together for almost 6 years now here at Barsha. I'm lead practitioner, so my responsibility is to ensure that our learning environments are outstanding and have access for all our children, so supporting the teachers with enabling that to happen. I've also been very fortunate to reach out and work with schools Kuwait, Bahrain and Sri Lanka. So we welcome other schools into school and to see how we create awe and wonder in our classrooms.
Thanks, Sam. So the aims of the short session that we have this afternoon is hopefully by the end you'll have an understanding of what awe and wonder is, or what at least we believe it is, and why that's so important. We will talk you through some real world examples, which is really important because I do feel when you attend these things, especially on a Thursday at the end of your working week, if you are here with us in the Middle East, it's really important that we give you things that you can take back to your environment and hopefully implement. So that's what we'll spend the majority of the session talking about. And then the tricky part is about maintaining those learning environments. So we'll hopefully share some tips and tricks on how we do that within our school. So the big question there is, as in our title, we said we're going to talk about awe and wonder, but what exactly does that mean and what is that? So the definition there, as you can see, is about a feeling of awakening. It's triggered by thinking about what is possible. And I guess when I think of awe and wonder, initially you think of the look on a child's face, which I know Vivette talked about quite a lot there really well. And you can see the photograph there of the little one from our school. That was a day when they came in and they were looking at lights and they were following a whole kind of story of children's interest. And you can see the look on their face. You just knew that they were experiencing a sense of awe and wonder. But what we really need, kind of beyond that initial point, is what we're working towards within our setting is about that sustained shared learning experience, and actually thinking about, we need that initial spark and interest, but then how do we actually make that last over a long period of time, and what does that look like? Because that's sometimes the hard part, and that's kind of what we want to aim for. And of course, the sense of awe and wonder can be achieved in terms of your interactions with children, the relationships that you have with them. But the kind of niche area that we'll talk about this afternoon is just about those environments and how we use the environment specifically to create a sense of awe and wonder. And like I said there, we're thinking about that sustained shared learning, which is lasting for a long period of time to allow us to track progress and see the skill sets that we want the children to achieve. So how do we measure this? Obviously, within your settings, you might measure that through observations. And when we do observations, we do kind of specific ones. So we look at, we might only look at the dialogue that takes place to measure the levels of engagement. We might look at how many questions the children ask. We might look at how many children are accessing different areas. So instead of a standard observation, there's lots of different ways of doing that. And as a side note, at the end of this presentation, we've shared quite a few resources with Amina. So some of the things that I'm talking about, you'll have access to. And then we also use things like the Leuven scales to measure levels of engagement. We also use a resource developed by Barry Carpenter in terms of engagement profiles. So those are some of the ways that we measure it. So again, it's about that initial hook into awe and wonder, and then it's about making that last for a really long time. And then it's also measuring the impact. So there's a lot that goes into that very simple sentence of what is awe and wonder.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about the practicalities. How do we do this? But before we go into that, you know, what's the hook? And for us here at Barsha, it's a really effective way of promoting higher levels of engagement for sustained periods of time. And I know Rebecca spoke about that in the previous slide, and that's really important for us. It's not just about the first day or the first hit of wow and wonder. It's making sure that we can continue that learning for a period of time. Sometimes a hook can be called an area of interest, an invitation to play, or an enhancement. And they're just some different terminology that different schools or different local authorities back in the UK may use to describe that. And for us at Barsha, it can be sparked by one child's interest. It can be a gap in learning that we've found from looking at our data that we use, or a small group. And what we know and our experiences are that even if it is a small hook that's in a corner of a classroom that we've dressed to follow a child's interest, we know that other children will come on board, and therefore it's exponential, the learning experiences that can happen from that. And I think it's really important to bring back to that real definition of awe and wonder, and it's that, what are the possibilities, that limitlessness to learning. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thanks, Sam. Just to let you know, all of the images that we're using are images from our current setting. I know we've got some teachers from our school on there, so they'll recognise maybe classroom environments. And following this session, we've got a huge kind of pack of images to share with you. Sam and I are both quite visual learners, so we sometimes find it easier to look at pictures, so hopefully you feel the same. So something that we've kind of developed within our team when we're looking at creating those initial hooks into learning are these key questions. So these are the kind of the starting questions that we would ask when developing an invitation to play or a hook into learning. So we would ask, is it beautiful? Which might sound like a little bit of a bizarre question, but it's really important to us that our space, as like Vivette said, is a space where children want to be and adults want to be. And again, when you're in your own home, you surround yourself with beautiful things that make you feel nice, and you put photographs of your family around because it makes it a space where you want to be. So we really try hard to make our spaces as beautiful as they possibly can be, and they're very loved. We keep them very tidy. We kind of, when you look at them, they look cared for. So that's the kind of a really important question for us. The second question there is about, are there open-ended learning opportunities? If you were as an adult, one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got when I was training to be an early years teacher was to go and play in an environment yourself. And that's when you can actually find out what's possible within that space. Because when you try and play there yourself, you actually see which resources you need. And is it a closed task? There are definitely places for closed tasks within early years, but often the very best learning that we see is from those open-ended learning opportunities. And then, is it closely linked to students' needs and next steps? We use objective-led planning, which means that we base it on the children's needs, obviously, and what learning outcome is intended. Because sometimes we can get kind of dragged along into the Pinterest world of really nice activities, and things look lovely and they sound lovely. And I love Pinterest. I'm not hating on Pinterest, I'm a big fan. But we can sometimes get dragged along into task kind of and more activity-led learning, but we really need to pull it back and think, actually, is this something that our students need? Is it accessible for all? And what we mean by that is are the resources available for children? Is it labelled? If anyone who knows me and works with label everything, you can't move without me sticking a label on you, so that it's accessible for all, and we're trying to make the most of that print-rich environment. And then again, something which I'm quite relentless with within my team is about those opportunities within each area. So as non-negotiables in almost every area, we expect there to be opportunities for mark making, opportunities for some level of math skills, and opportunities for reading. So they can't lend themselves to quite everywhere, but it's the vast majority of hooks into learning that we're able to kind of have those areas of skill as well. So the next few slides are images of hooks, again, just to show you some visuals of what we're talking about. So to go back to the last slide is, when we create an area like this, we would go back and ask ourselves these questions. So when we talk through them with you, I'll talk you through one, and then Sam will talk you through some more, is just thinking about what kind of learning skills we want to get out of those spaces. And of course, we take it back to the curriculum and thinking about the gaps in children's knowledge. But what we really want to look at alongside that is about the learning skills that they'll have there, and thinking about, alongside the curriculum content, what skills are going to be developed. So examples from this space are communication, opportunities for prediction, curiosity, risk-taking. So this is just a really simple potion kind of space. And again, it's incredibly open-ended. We feel as though it's quite beautiful. It's really interesting. It allows for children to take it in lots of different directions. So what we would see is that this would be a successful hook into developing a sense of awe and wonder. So this is an example of kind of what we're talking about. And you can see there that there's some quite simple resources there. We've got lots of twigs, we've got some scissors, some pestle and mortars, there's some glitter, and this was a space within a classroom that was there for a really long period of time. And actually some of the learning that we got out of that was of such a high quality, because the environment was there as a facilitator. It just facilitated so many wonderful learning opportunities for the children. And you can see there's some really high quality writing there. There's quite a questionable spelling of perfume, water and glitter, but again, they're linked to mark making. So Sam's going to talk you through some more things. Sam.
Thank you, Rebecca. So this is something that happened at the beginning of this year in one of our FS1 classes. And I think it's important to say right from the beginning, is that it did require teacher input, and that is absolutely fine. It doesn't always have to be children's independent learning, because obviously when they come to us and they're new to us, there are skills that they need to learn. They need to communicate with each other. They need to collaborate. And particularly this year, having not had those experiences in a general sort of educational environment because of COVID, it was really important for us to help scaffold those skills for those children. I think, as Rebecca said, you can see it's beautiful, it's purposeful. There's open-ended opportunities here, although we were making a friendship pie to get everyone to come together as a community and learn more about each other and to agree with each other, classroom rules and what were important to us as a community within the class. It then went on to baking, mixing, predicting, changing of materials. Children were mark making to make their own pie recipes. They watched how to make a pie and so on and so forth. And I think it's important for you to see that we have got glass, we have got items that break within our classrooms. And this was from day one. And it's a journey that we've been on as a school for the last 5 years. And as plastic items have broken, we've replaced them with real world objects, and that's been key to us here. It's really important for our children to know how to handle delicate objects and to feel the different weights of objects, because in this very plastic world that we live in, unfortunately they quite often don't have those experiences. Thank you, Rebecca. So this was something that happened in one of our FS2 classrooms. This is from last year. So we had our National Day, and it's quite funny that our National Day celebrations have happened here today at school for us as well. And the children were looking at mosaics and patterns, and they were really, really intrigued by the symmetry within patterns. So the children used their iPad, they used their interactive whiteboard to choose their own symmetrical patterns for the following week. They put them into the maths area, they chose the resources that they wanted to use. And that's something that's really important for us as well. We don't just dress the hooks or the invitations to play, we get the children. Now in COVID, that means they're moving more supervised. Pre-COVID, they would go into our central area. We're very lucky to have a resource space that classrooms can access. The children would independently go search in the library for books, search in our resource banks to get the tools that they wanted to use. They would take down a previous hook or an area, clean it away, tidy, and then dress the new learning area. And that's really important because it gives them ownership. It enables them to know that they want to take care of it because they've put the effort into setting it up. And here, it just moved on to that deeper level and understanding of symmetry that they didn't have in that previous week. So it was building on to another week's worth of high quality learning. Thank you, Rebecca. So this was something that happened in Miss Maguire's class, one of our FS1 classes, and Miss Maguire is with us here today. And she had a little boy, Sean, who at home was really upset because his crayons had got dirty. As we all know, wax crayons get all the black knobbly bits. They break after a period of time, and he was a bit disheartened. So Mum had seen on YouTube how you could melt down wax crayons to make new ones. So she spent time with Sean over the weekend doing this with him, and he was so excited that he came into school in the morning and at the door told Miss Maguire all about it. Miss Maguire asked Mum, did you take any photographs? Which luckily Mum had. Mum emailed them in. This then led to Sean later on in the morning presenting to the class with a whiteboard and explaining all the learning that had happened at home. Then the class decided that they would like to do that. So they collected the old crayons, brought them together, sorted them, categorized them, and then went outside with Miss Maguire and used different materials to try and melt them in the sun. So they had tin foil, I think there was Perspex, there was the black tough spot spread and tray that they used, and then periodically throughout the day went out and measured how much melting had taken place and which material was the best for helping to melt those crayons. They then made new crayons from that. And because they were so excited and because Sean had led that, it literally did bring the whole class on board. And I was very fortunate to get invited at the end of the session to go and have a look. And the children were absolutely buzzing. There was lovely, rich language happening from that experience, using prediction. The the FS1 children in their first term, and it was wonderful to see. And you can see in the image, this is how it was displayed, that journey of learning within the classroom. The children is still in the classroom. You can probably see it behind me, and the children are still experimenting with that. In the left of the picture, when we talk about accessibility to all, we use widgets to help children verbalize and communicate with the learning that's going on. You can see there's lots of visual imagery. There are questions there that prompt the adults. We've got QR codes to enable the children to independently use the iPads to take their further learning, to recap, and to take it into different areas. So one of the QR codes is for a different melting crane art experiment to happen. So it's just shows you the potential for language and further learning beyond what you may expect an FS1 child to appreciate and to absorb. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thanks so much, Sam. So those were just some kind of visual examples of what we believe to be effective hooks. And again, some of those were stemmed from teacher ideas and based on our data and what that was telling us. And then the example that Sam just gave there was based on a child's interest. So we've got a couple more slides to talk you through. So I hope you're still listening. So we want to share with you how we document children's learning. So we feel as though we do a really good job of providing these kind of facilitative learning spaces, but then it's really important that we capture that and we're able to use that information in order to future plan for our students. So we use Seesaw, which I'm sure lots of you have become very familiar with over the last few months, if that's something that your school uses. We use Seesaw to capture children's learning journeys, and then all children in FS1 have an A3 learning journey where all of their physical work, anything that they create, goes into there in chronological order. And then in FS2 they have a writing book and a maths book. Again, if there's anything physical that they record, that goes in their book. But what we do, which is something that works really well for our students, is each child has their own box, their kind of proud box. So you can see, what you can see here is this is an image of one on a classroom wall. So on our display boards, these are the only displays we have. We don't have anything else. We just have 20 or 24 boxes, depending on how many children are in each class. It has their photograph, it has their name and in Arabic, and then the children have complete ownership over this space, and they use it as a way in to challenge themselves. So they get to choose what goes into this box. They have to justify what goes in there in terms of it has to be better than what they did before, and that's not my opinion or the teacher's opinion. If it's better, it's the child saying, this is better than what I did before because this is how I challenged myself, or this is how I kind of made my brain work a little bit harder, and this was my tricky learning, and all of those kind of terminology that we use for them. And we do say to our parents when they join us, we do have incredibly high expectations of our children from day one. We talk to them about challenge, we talk to them about making their brain grow, and use all of that language. So this is what Talia believes is her best learning at the moment, and there's some examples of maths recording, there's some examples of some mark making. The object that you can see there, which I think was a bit of a challenge to get on the board, is her swing that she decided to construct, and next to that is little descriptions so that anybody looking at that can see what that looks to. So this is used again for children as a celebration, but it's also used as an accountability measure so that children can talk about their own learning journeys and actually talk about their own skill sets, which we find works for our children. So now the tricky part is about maintaining that. So as we all know, lots of the joy comes from those enhancements, and what we've talked to you is definitely enhanced provision as opposed to the continuous provision. So the hooks are the enhancements that change over time. But what's really important before we do that, we've kind of done this in reverse, talking about this last, but before you do any of those lovely enhancements, you have to get your continuous provision right, which I know as early years practitioners, you will know. So we work really hard on our core of the classroom and thinking about what that looks like. So in certain areas, you will always find the same things. So this is an example of the space for mark making. And we tend, like I said, to have mark making opportunities in almost every area of learning, but we do have a bit of a resource base. So you can see there will always be different types of writing utensils, there'll always be different types of paper, there'll always be access to phonic mats, keyword mats, and that's our continuous provision. And then we will enhance it with whatever the children are interested in or what it is that we're learning about. So I think this class at this moment in time, we're interested in space and also rainbow fairies, unicorns or dragons or something that's on the top there. So the way in which we do this in our school is we give all of our teachers kind of a non-negotiable list, which sounds quite harsh, but it's basically a list of all of the resources that need to go into your continuous provision in order to make it really successful and allow for different levels of skill. So following this, and kind of on the last slide, something that I have done, which I hope you don't mind me sharing, is I've actually written a book which is up for sale. It's only $4.99, it's bargain, it's less than so that basically shows you kind of, this is your continuous provision, and if you put all of those resources in, that will hopefully be a really successful core of your classroom, and then you can add all of those lovely enhancements on top. Now, the challenge that we normally face is great in making sure our environments are as we need them to be, but this year we've had to overcome even more challenges, as you all have. So a really small bit of information in terms of things that we've done in our school that have worked in our foundation stage area is that we've tried to really stay close to what we believe in and our current practice. We haven't strayed too far from what we normally do. We just had to put some other kind of safety precautions in place. So all of our children have spots that move around the room with them. You can see there, it's either a coloured spot, or it might be a picture of their face, whatever the teacher's chosen. And we try to encourage physical distancing as much as possible, and the spots are a bit of a visual reminder of that. We certainly aren't successful in doing that all the time, but we do try our best, and our children are becoming incredibly adept at doing that. In Dubai, we were asked to group our children in stable groups, so that might be different in your school, but our children in FS are either split into 2 or 3 stable groups. So they stay with the children all of the time, and they move from one space to another. So you can see there the fence. We don't normally have fences in the middle of our classroom, but at the moment we do have it split in half in FS1, and then in FS2 we have it split in half, and then there's an extra space kind of in the internal learning space. So that's kind of how we're managing that, and they stay with those children for a whole week, and then they move to a different space. When we do whole class teaching, we're able to do that. So again, if we have the children physically distanced from each other, we can teach them as a whole class where appropriate. And like I said, promoting the physical distancing with the spots. So that's just a bit of a COVID related question, but in terms of our resourcing, the only thing really that we've reduced is the use of soft furnishings. So we're not having as many kind of cushions and pillows and soft toys and things like that. But in relation to everything else, we've been able to keep it kind of as it was before, because the children are within their stable group, they can access the same resources. We just do a deep clean at the end of every day. So that brings us to the end of the session. I hope I haven't run over there too much. So the aims of the session, which hopefully we've achieved, was to talk about what Owen Wonder is and why it's important. Hopefully give you real world examples of how we promote Owen Wonder within our school, and then to think about maintaining inspiring learning spaces. So the final bit there was just to open it up to any questions, which I think Amina's going to do. And then our email addresses are there if you ever want to email us. So there's mine there, r.tennant@kingslawblash.com, and then Sam is s-hamlet, so please do email. And then there is a link there to my book if that's something that interests you. Again, that's just a checklist of continuous provision, if that's useful to you at all. So yeah, hopefully that was okay. Thanks, Amina.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, and thank you so much, Sam. For me, it's just so wonderful to seeing sort of the learning in action and learning in practice. And I was saying to you before that I feel like I'm at King's every week in the netball court, but I never get to see inside. So I can't wait to come and visit at some point, because it's wonderful to see just that different types of learning environments to suit the children. And you know, for me, it's about not always, you know, changing. You know, you can see the environment's still, you know, wonderful. It's really accessible for all the children, but obviously following those COVID regulations. I think you just answered the question about soft furnishing and books. So you can have books in the environment as long as they're within that stable group. They're obviously, they're hardback books or wash books that you can wipe them down after each child has touched them. Soft furnishings obviously can't have, but I think there was like one image may have had a bit of soft furnishing. I think that might have been the question in that, but I think that was more display purposes as well. But thank you so much. I'm just double checking if there's any more questions. I can't see any more questions, so that's wonderful. It's wonderful to see that everyone's been answering those questions for us. So thank you so much, everyone. I'm just going to quickly share my screen just to let you know about the up and coming webinar. So on the 21st of January, we've got our next webinar, which is called Injecting Creativity in Our Learning Areas, which actually leads really nicely from today's session. And we've got Peter Morehouse, who you might know as the woodwork guy. So actually how he brings in woodwork to the environment. And then we've got Safa British School, and I think we've got Noreen here today as well. So she's going to be talking about her environments and how they lead creativity within their environment. So I do hope you can join us. I'm also thrilled to let you know this year that the BSME conference, we held it every February. And last year, we had it with GEMS, we obviously were all together. This year is going to be slightly different. It's going to be a virtual webinar. So myself and Gemma are organising the webinar with both schools together, and we're going to be doing it virtually. So what's going to happen this year, it's going to be slightly different, is that schools are going to buy one package for the school. And so then you can have access to the sessions live. They're on a weekend. You'll have all the recordings, and then what we're going to do, and I know what lots of schools can do, is use it as part of their CPD program throughout the year, so you can plan those sessions in. So across the year, then you can think, okay, I want to watch this session with my colleagues. So it actually be really beneficial for you, not just for that day, but long-term learning and that CPD moving forward. So I do hope you can join us, and more information will go out next week to support you. But thank you so much to everybody. I really do appreciate your time on a Thursday. I do hope everyone has a wonderful